So, hello and welcome to the Coram Deo podcast. I'm Pastor Samuel, and this is our main man, Philip.
That's me.
Well, it's my main man, Philip. He may not be your main man, Philip. You have to ask him personally.
That's true. And odds are I'll agree. So come up.
I don't know. It depends.
Anytime.
I'll depend.
Come to Maplewood Meats. Not sponsored, but I'm wearing their merch.
Not sponsored, but we are totally open to that.
Absolutely.
Maybe you could talk to him about it.
Dude, that'd be dope.
I would so be eating a beef stick right now if they give us beef sticks.
Absolutely.
I would even wear a hat, dude. I would totally wear a hat.
Dude,
just to rep it.
They have green. They have green now. So, dude, I'll hook you up.
Bro,
What's your size? Medium?
Yeah, probably medium. Right. I would gladly advertise for Maplewood Meats. They have great meat. And I mean, what a beautiful store. Just all meat. Mm. Spices. I mean, it's great. If you haven't been to Maplewood, you should just go. It's quite an experience. Check it out. I mean, it is spendy, but it is good meat.
Well worth it.
You know, special occasions. Oh, and here is Tabitha. She's the one who does all the computer buttons and stuff.
Computer buttons.
Computer butteries.
Buttering the buttons.
Anyway, that was a really long intro and a plea to Maplewood Meats for sponsorship.
# Maplewood Meats.
This is the Coram Deo podcast. We were actually not yet sponsored by Maplewood Meats.
Or all the other people we love.
But we're totally open to it. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Like and subscribe to our channel. Hit that notification bell every time we post. You will know. Bing. You will know. And we do have Instagram, Facebook. Go ahead and follow it. We need to do better about like posting stuff. But we're there. So
it's true.
Comment on stuff and let us know about subjects you want to talk about, or if you said that's a really good point, please delve into that. We're open to it. So we are halfway, more than halfway into our purity month. That beautiful, awkward time has come upon us. But like we said, it's a really important thing to be talking about. And today we talked about gender and homosexuality.
Hot topic.
Super hot topic. Not sponsored by that store, and we would not be open to it.
Or Hot Pockets. We don't.
No.
Because there's only two temperatures that you get it at. It's either slightly frozen or molting hot lava.
That's true.
There's
both of those options don't have a flavor.
That's true.
That is very true.
Mm-hmm. That's why I don't have to put very good ingredients, because you can't taste it anyway.
Wow. That's a revelation right there.
Sorry, guys. Please don't come for me, Hot Pockets.
So we were talking about that today. And just the importance of having these conversations. And I don't know. I feel like people are like, well, how does that have to do with purity? And I'm like, it has everything to do with purity, because this generation is totally being sold a whole host of lies.
Yeah.
Like in such a very strategic and it's malicious at how quickly they're just like pushing it so hard. In every aspect of their life, like video games, it's there. Television, it's
YouTube.
there. Books, it's there. I mean, YouTube, school, it's there. So I just feel like it's really important to have these conversations and be like, hey, actually, you can't choose your gender, man. You just can't.
You also can't separate gender from sexuality. You can't.
Oh, you're saying that they tried to do that.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like, they're saying you can pick your gender. It has nothing to do with purity. And that's just not true.
Right.
But I think at least for me, when I was younger, that was never a thing that even came across my childhood. It was more like, what did purity mean for us? As in my experience, it means you don't have sex. That's it. There wasn't like everything leading up to it was okay, but if you had intercourse, then that was you're impure. And what I was trying to explain to the girls when we separated was purity has so much more to do than sexual desire.
Mm-hmm.
It's like how you think, how you believe. It's how you treat people.
Yeah.
How you think about people. Like that, I think it was day 9. What the questions in the girls' book was.
This is the book 40-Day Journey to Purity by Moral Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't
Jason
follow
and Chris
Moral
Hamilton.
Revolution, you should. They have really great content on all of these subjects.
Fantastic.
And really great resources. If you're a parent and you're like, I don't know how to have these conversations, they have a course that you can take online about how to have these conversations. Because you know what? They are awkward. And it
doesn't matter how old you get.
Nope.
Actually, the book is amazing, the 40-Day Journey to Purity, because it has even a 10-minute video that you can watch with each day.
Yeah.
So it's like super in-depth. Like
I wouldn't even just say that it's only for teenagers. Honestly.
Absolutely not. I would agree. Like I think everyone could get something out of it. But the questions were pertaining to, it was starting to talk about the purity plan.
Yeah.
And so it was like, okay, if your friends thought about your husband the way that you think about guys,
yeah, what
would you feel?
Rage.
So a lot of them got real red at that point. Like I just asked the question.
Yeah.
Like, because even at the ages that they are, we have 10, I think up to probably like 16 or something. So
it's a wide range.
Even like the young girls were like, oh, because they're already starting, because it's cultural that you can think about anybody any way you want. And it's okay because you're not acting out on it. But when you think about how are you thinking about other people, like it was like, I don't know if they did that in the boys, but in the girls, it was like, think about all guys as someone else's husband. How are you going to treat them?
Awkwardly.
How are you going to talk to them? How are you going to think about them? Are you going to be like, ooh, look at his abs. I'm going to dream about those for a while.
Most of them don't have that.
That's true. But girls still think about, like,
they just
young
make it up.
Girls think about guys like that. I know that's when you get older and you look back, you're like, wow, that was a really weird decision. But anyway, I just thought that was really important because it's not just don't have sex with people and you'll be pure. Yeah. Actually, that's like one portion, like really 1% of the issue. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It has everything to do with how you treat people and not just people your age. I think that's a thing in our culture because we segregate age groups so much.
Yeah.
Is that people just think it has to do with their peers.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I'm noticing in my group.
Yep.
They don't want to talk about anything except for with their peers, which is just not going to work out.
Nope. Certainly not after 18 years old.
Well, because it's like if you wanted to be a scientist, but you only wanted to learn from people your age.
No, it's not learning from people. They already have
That's
to learn
true.
from people that are not their
discussing.
Age. It's being open and vulnerable with people.
Accountability. Yeah.
So, that's a different subject.
Yep. It kind of goes hand in hand, though.
Yes. But the guys, I think, was the day 8 or whatever was the difference between... actually, attraction is okay.
Mm.
Like the difference between lust and attraction. And I think that's a super important difference to make. Like, because guys get in trouble, like they get themselves into trouble with is actually being attracted to somebody being attracted to a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And they automatically put shame and condemnation onto it. And so then it goes into like lust and all this stuff. And then it gets into a whole big mess. But men are literally wired to find beauty in things in the world and observe. And so, like, we're trying to shut down how we're designed. Instead of just being like, yeah, that person's very attractive, and being like, celebrating that, not being lustful, not being weird, not like
Being
fantasizing,
gross.
not being gross, but just being like, yeah, she's really attractive. She, like, her humor is really attractive to me.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. So those are some thoughts on that. But what do you have? I feel like you have questions. You have your notebook ready. You have some points to make.
I don't know where to start. So I guess, okay, I'll start where I wish I could start, at least back in my day.
Okay.
Okay. So the number one thing growing up, at least on the topic of homosexuality, is that it was the worst.
Right.
The worst sin. And I love how you had it when you were speaking, that it's sin. Like listing out the different sin. What verse that was 1 Corinthians 6:9. I believe.
Yeah.
Like it's in with the other sin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like homosexuality. This is the king of sin.
Right.
Okay. You do this. Oh no.
Right.
You done messed up, kid. You're done. You
Yeah.
check out.
Straight to hell.
Yeah. You're one trip ticket to hell right now. Sorry. That was the worst. And like growing up, like that was, if there was any sort of talk about sexuality, which there wasn't.
There was.
Being gay, that was the absolute worst. You do this, it's done.
Mm-hmm.
And like there was no redemption.
Yeah.
There was no love. There was nothing. And like like I feel like most churches like would agree with that sort of belief. I mean,
I don't know if they would actually say it.
I don't think they would say it, but like,
But the amount of uncomfortability and the culture
Makes it feel that way.
of the subject just being completely like not something we
like
deal with.
it's the quickest answer. Like, oh yeah, okay, you're done.
Yes.
Like
they just try and make it go away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. So with that, like I wish people would just see like that hurts people that do struggle with that.
Right.
Like if all that you hear, like if you're struggling with something, like it doesn't even have to be homosexuality. Like if you struggle with like lying, if you hear somebody say, "Oh, lying," you're done.
Yeah.
God will abandon you if you lie.
Yeah.
Like if you hear that, what
Yeah.
like are you actually going to pursue a better life, or with everybody, the church and the world telling you like, hey, yeah, this is bad? Like where is that motivation to be a better person going to come from?
Yeah.
Like
It's not. But I think also feel like the pendulum has swung the complete opposite way now, where like it's pretty hard pressed to find a church that thinks like that. And like for the most part, like a lot of churches are just like kind of like okay with it.
Well, I think that's true with all sin.
Yeah.
Actually, we've gone so far into Jesus loves you and he's not judging you.
Right.
To like, you can actually stay unchanged. Not that you
transformation isn't actually like
in
something
the culture.
part of the gospel. It's like
the gospel that we're hearing.
No, the gospel that like that they're living. Like,
yes,
the gospel that they believe in. Transformation doesn't have to happen
because you can stay in unchanged, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But like, because what is truly salvation is that you're transformed into a new creation, which we've talked about.
Yeah.
And then that being said, when you mess up,
Right.
that is it's okay because you're going to be restored to that new creation. Right. It's not okay because you're going to stay in that sin and be like,
But I think we've only gotten to this pendulum swing because it's a reaction to that culture that was around like, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago.
Right.
So
and before.
Well, and before that, where like instead of actually just sitting down with people and dealing with the subject and talking, I feel like it's such like an easy subject to be reactionary to, but it's also an easy subject not to react to because I'm just like, yeah,
like that's what it is.
Yeah, you struggling with that? Okay, cool, man.
Okay, so I don't remember who taught it, but like sexual sin, so not just homosexuality, but sexual perversion.
Yeah.
Is talked about a lot and kind of like highlighted because it's a inward, if it affects the person, like yourself.
Yeah.
And your body. And another person and their body. So that's why I feel like they said something like it's a sin against yourself and your body, and therefore it was like one of the deadly sins or whatever. You know those 3 deadly sins that they talk about?
Well, there's 7, aren't there?
I don't know.
I
think they're all deadly.
But so I think the point, I think that's
I'm
like
confused about that whole list thing.
I think the point more was like, I guess because that doesn't really totally make sense because everything is a sin against yourself. But I think it was because it was bringing someone else into it.
I think I know what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
Like I've heard
the teaching. But I just think it's completely ludicrous because every sin is destructive.
That's true.
There's not a sin that doesn't affect me and my body, and that doesn't
goes against the nature of what God created us to be.
And that doesn't affect people around me.
That's true.
Right. So like, okay, for instance, I've seen a couple of drunk people before. Okay.
Yes.
I don't go out much, so this is like
he's a sheltered man.
Yeah, I'm a very sheltered individual. So when I saw the world, I was shook. But anywho, so the whole conversation of like during your sermon, like finding happiness in the sin, or however that was phrased. Like, yes, you can find happiness, but it's like, okay, like when I saw these drunk people, like they were laughing, they were having a good time, but like, if you need to be drunk to have a good time, like, why can't you just have a good time? Like, you're not going to remember anything. If anything, you need to be recorded to know what happened. And the next day you're going to have a massive headache. You're probably still going to feel sick. You're probably still going to want to throw up. Like, you're just not going to have a good time. A good time for me, 2020, favorite year of my life. Okay. Love 2020. Wow. I did so much. I remember going to Bay Beach, hanging out with my new friends. Okay. I went on a freaking roller coaster. Never again. Okay. Hate roller coasters. I don't even know how I got on the roller coaster. Oh, okay. I remember because I wasn't drunk. Okay. So Alyssa didn't want to go. And
then you talked her into it.
Yeah.
And then you ended
everybody
up
was like, oh, Alyssa, you can go. And I was sucked into it. Like, oh yeah, Alyssa, go. We're all going. And I'm like, wait, I don't like roller coasters either. Right. But it was too late.
No, you tricked me.
I was already on board. I tricked myself. Like, so I was on there. I was like, oh, I'm going to regret this. I started like singing worship songs all the way up until the first drop, and nothing. Like, I was just frozen. Like, I was just, but like, even in the midst of that, great time. Love that day. It was a great day. And I can remember it because I didn't have to go into sin to have a good time. I didn't, what?
I just need my headphones turned down.
Oh, like I didn't have to be drunk to convince myself to get on a roller coaster. I didn't have to be drunk to convince myself to go with my friends to Bay Beach.
No, you just needed peer pressure.
Well, no, I wanted to hang out. I wanted to have a good time.
I'm just teasing.
So like, it's easy. It's easy.
Yeah.
But like, where's the benefit?
Right.
like I don't see a benefit.
You don't actually see a benefit long term in the health of a person when you look at those lists of sins, right? Like drunkenness,
that's what
pornography, sexual sin, lying, not loving people, like all of these things end in destruction,
right?
And homosexuality and gender dysphoria, or whatever you want to call it, gender confusion, all of those things end in destruction. Actually, to change your gender, you're already participating in destruction from the start. You're destroying your body to change it into something that it will never actually be. And so, like one of the girls was like, well, my question was, have you actually met somebody who's really happy, who's actually truly happy, who lives a drunk lifestyle, like who drinks and who's drunk all the time? And she was like, well, yeah.
Up until they died.
He was happy, until, up until he died. Well, when did he die? Well, he was 40. I'm like, dude, I'm 10 years from being 40. Like, that's young.
Part that cracked me up was, how did he die? Cocaine.
Yes.
I was like, oh, you're not understanding the point.
Like, there's no actual benefit, like, statistically speaking, scientifically speaking, just on basis of the facts, we could talk about feelings, which are still going to be valid and prove my point. But the truth is that you're not going to find happiness by trying to change the outside factors of your life using other substances, which is actually still changing your gender is still using substances.
Well, yeah, because you're on medication.
Because you're on medication, you're having surgery. You have to change all of these things,
change your
cosmetically, all these cosmetic things to try and make your inside, your soul inside, to feel secure and feel right, when the only thing that's actually going to make you feel secure and feel your true purpose and identity is God. And so we're misdiagnosing the problem in all of these things, and reaction isn't helping. Not having these conversations isn't helping. Right. It isn't helping these kids. It isn't helping anybody. And
it's sad how uncomfortable people are having this conversation inside a church from a pastor. It's actually shocking to me. Like, these kids that have been to their church their whole lives are so highly uncomfortable inside church. But if they were in school, they would be fine.
Well, no, I don't think so, because they don't talk like that. They just do like the anatomy stuff, I think
like it's easier to ignore in school.
Yeah.
So like it's easier to just like in one ear out the other. But if you hear it in church, you're like, oh man, I need to get out of here. This is not good.
There's no
let's talk about Jesus or something. Yeah.
No, they go very in depth in school about sex.
Well, I don't know. I never went to that stuff. But I mean, they're all just trying to figure out all of this by themselves, mostly. Like, they had never had these conversations in an appropriate way of like, how does God look at it?
Right.
So parents also really need to step up to the plate of these conversations. Like, I'm not going to wait until my son is like 14 to have these conversations, because it's way too late by then. Like, we actually need to be talking about how God views sex, how God views gender, how God views all these things at like 7, 8,
Absolutely.
9.
Because if you look in, continue.
Because statistically, that's where all of this stuff begins to creep in already, and it's actually getting progressively worse,
younger,
younger as time goes on, and as the church abdicates its role in these conversations, because the world is dominating what is the narrative of these extremely important subjects to God, and extremely pivotal things in our life to actually bring us fulfillment and happiness.
And I think part of the reason that is, like, if you look biblically at sex, kids learned about the proper way of going about that for for their whole childhood, because they would be going to weddings.
Mm-hmm.
What was a wedding? It was a 2-week long process of the bride and groom saying their vows, and then they would go into a tented area until they consummated their marriage, which she should be a virgin.
Yeah.
And then there should be blood because she was a virgin. And then they didn't get to come out of there until there was blood on a sheet, and then they started the party. So kids were around this they were never not.
Yeah.
And I think that's where Western culture or Western Christianity that's where it's kind of started separating, because we are afraid of kids knowing things like this because we don't think it's appropriate for them, when it is appropriate for them in the
right context.
Right context.
Mm-hmm.
And if they never see it in the right context, not that they have to watch it, but
Please,
they have
God,
to
that's
see.
not what we're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Clarification, that is not what we're saying.
No, and that's really popular right now in the secular world for kids to see. It's gross, but anyway, it's a misconstrued thing of the truth.
Yeah.
Where they need to know when is the proper time.
What is the
for
proper
this
context?
When is the proper protocol? How does A plus B equal C?
Right.
Like, when is it appropriate for this to happen inside of this union? That's it.
Yeah.
Like, for humans. Like, they already knew what sex was because there was animals all around them all the time.
Yeah, that's true.
But for humans, what does that look like?
Yeah.
Under God, what does that look like? And they knew. So I think, not to say that there wasn't probably issues and people doing things
Well, have you read the Bible?
Yeah, but
have you read it? Because there's a lot of inappropriateness.
Yeah, but
like
when you are around that culture, you're going to have a less chance of the world influencing and saying, this is actually how you do it. And it's actually okay to do it this way. But if you've grown up in that Jewish tradition of, okay, we don't party until the blood comes out, then you would kind of just innately know.
Yeah.
There wouldn't have to be a sex talk.
Right.
And that would start when they become aware as children, however early that is, 2, 3.
Right.
Yeah. I was just realizing that, like, that's the difference in our cultures, is that we have to have, like, in our brains, we have to have the sex talk. Like, we have to have a set time with our children. I've heard it for years. You have to have this set time, this special moment. Oh, this is the day that I'm going to have the sex talk with my kid. Instead of it like being an organic thing where they're like, oh, you know, what's this body part? Why is your body part different than my body part? Mm-hmm. Oh, well.
Right, like those questions are always shot down to save it for that specific day. And by that time, it's already too late.
Yeah.
They already found out. They were already curious.
They just already figured
How
it
are
out.
babies made? Oh, the stork.
I freaking hate that. It's my pet peeve.
Or whatever. Like, people have different things. Like, it's not just that. But
You went to the baby store.
Babies are us.
like it's those like justified lies, like Santa Claus and like Tooth Fairies. Like I hate all that. I hate all that.
Yeah. So why do we do that? Because we're uncomfortable. Because we've never actually let the Lord heal our own pain in that area or our own thinking in that area.
Right.
So it's actually our job as adult humans to let the Lord heal that, so that we don't have to pass that on.
Right.
And we can like bring wholeness in that area for the next group of people.
Yeah. I would say the talk is a generational curse.
Yeah, because I mean, I didn't ever have one.
Did I?
Nor did I. But that was like in the 90s, in the early 2000s. That was the thing. Like that, I heard, the only reason I know about the talk is because they would say that on TV shows.
Yeah.
And they would say that at church. Make sure you have the talk with your teens. Okay, but by the time they're teenagers, their hormones be raging and they already want things that they don't know what that means.
Right.
So it's this is why it's awkward. That's why it's awkward, because they feel awkward because they're already feeling that.
Yeah.
But when you have the talk or the continual conversation, which is what it should be, a continual conversation, like way before 7, 8, they're like, cool, can I get ice cream?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, cool, can I play with my Legos now?
There's no like actual, like, because when it's just like,
just
oh,
facts.
they talk, like, I feel like it actually creates shame around the subject where now I feel awkward learning about it.
Yeah.
Like the child feels awkward learning about it because now it's like this special thing that we don't ever talk about up until this moment, and then it's never talked about again.
Yeah. But if you have a continual conversation and are proactive, it's like when you get them in that early age when they don't have that raging desire or hormones or things aren't changing yet.
Yeah.
It's just facts and truth. It's that first mention, what do you call it?
The law of first mention.
The law of first mention. So now that's the truth. Everything else isn't.
Yeah.
And it's not like, oh, I should have known this. I feel like I should have known this. Or, oh, why are you making this weird? Why are you uncomfortable? I was like, oh yeah, this is how it goes.
Right.
Yeah.
Like shame has nothing to grasp onto.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
like,
when they're that young, like I said, it's like just facts.
Yeah.
So they're like, cool, can I go play now?
Yeah.
it's like watching an episode of Nature or Nova.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool.
That makes sense. I
Yeah.
get that now.
There
Yeah.
you go.
And obviously there's age appropriate things like,
Right.
Right.
but that's just what I've learned from watching
Yeah.
parenting stuff and everything.
Yeah.
Can I tell you a fact? I was driving my mama around to get her some physical therapy, and she was reading in the back of the book from the 40-day journey to purity.
Yes.
And there's some statistics there. And so it kind of all happened between the 60s and the 80s. All these things like, so, abortion became legal, birth control became legal because it was illegal before 74, I think. Or 68. I can't remember exactly. But anyway, they said before birth control, there were 2 STDs. Do you know how many there are now?
No.
64.
My goodness.
Whoa. That's wild.
Do you know why? Because when birth control became legal, women didn't have the fear of getting pregnant, so they didn't feel the need for the man to marry them before sex. So then that started the sleeping with multiple people.
Yeah.
Like, not started, but that became more prominent.
Yeah.
And so, therefore, it became more and more and more and more. That's 50 years. It went from 2 to 64 in 50 years.
That sounds pretty destructive to me. I don't know. How about you, Philip?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Very much so.
Pretty destructive. And the main point for tonight that I wanted to kind of take everybody through is that the argument of a lot of people is that, like, this is outdated. Like, gender is outdated. Like, sexuality between man and female that's just old thinking. But biblically, it's the same in the Old Testament and the New Testament. Same in the New Covenant, Old Covenant. There's certain subjects. So what you actually want to do with subjects that are pretty big, you want to see what the narrative is throughout the whole Bible. And so, like, let's just take 3 really big subjects. Okay, let's do homosexuality, slavery, and women.
Mm.
Okay. So, Old Testament, lots of slaves.
Yeah.
I mean, it was actually pretty normal. You could actually put yourself into like you were a slave to somebody
To pay off a debt.
to pay off a debt, or to be like, I actually just want to serve you. So slavery was a lot different in the Bible than it is today.
Yeah.
There wasn't necessarily like
It wasn't all
classes
forced.
of like there wasn't races of slaves. There was classes of slaves. Anyway, except if you were a Jew in Egypt. But Old Testament doesn't say a lot about it, except that in every story there is actually a redemptive. I mean, even the story of the Israelites in Egypt, it ends in freedom. And so then in the New Testament, a lot of people say like the Bible doesn't like come out and condemn slavery. Well, actually, if you do what Jesus teaches you to do, it's like love one another as Christ loved the church. Don't look anyone, like don't make yourself more important than anyone else. Like look for each other's needs. If you did that, all of those things equal each other out.
Right.
He literally says, slaves, masters, treat your slaves as Christ treats you. That's pretty leveling, actually.
Because it wasn't the same concept as Americans think of.
Right, as modern slavery looks as like African American relationship.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't necessarily that type of slavery, but the idea that the Bible doesn't say anything about it
is wrong.
Because it literally says, "Masters, treat your slaves as Christ treats you."
Right.
And so it's like, oh shoot,
Well,
like Christ died for me,
yeah.
so I'm supposed to die for my slave.
Yep.
To what? Set me free. He died to set me free. So the Bible actually does talk about it, and it progressively makes it more obvious that you need to set people free. That's actually the point of the whole gospel. Okay, and so then you go with women. Old Testament, Genesis, men and women are equal. The point is that they're equal, right? Eve came from the side of Adam, not from his foot. Women are not beneath men, and women are not above men. So the fall created the need for domination. Men wanting to dominate women, and women wanting to dominate men. And so it progressively went worse for women in the Old Testament. I mean, even in the New Testament, it wasn't much better. But the way Jesus treats women is so countercultural. It's so radical that you actually don't understand the full like velocity of his actions until you really study the culture and the context of the Bible.
And if you want a condensed version of that, the book Fashioned to Reign is super.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Super good.
And then it says there in Galatians, it says there's neither male nor female, slave nor free, nor Jew nor Gentile. Basically, you're all equal in Christ. So that narrative progressively moves that way. Okay? So let's take homosexuality. Leviticus says if you lay with a man, it's an abomination. You should be put to death. Old Testament.
Stoned.
You should be stoned and put to death. Now, the New Testament doesn't say you should be put to death, but it is still listed in the list of sins, and you will not inherit the kingdom of God. So it actually doesn't change much at all. It's still sin. It's still an abomination to the Lord.
It still separates you from God.
It still separates you from God, but he doesn't command us to kill you. Jesus commands us to correct you, lovingly guide you to
just like the liar, just like the glutton,
just like every other sin.
Yeah.
And so the only thing that changes in the Bible with homosexuality is that instead of just putting you to death, we are still going to be fighting for your redemption.
Right.
And so the whole idea that, this is just outdated thinking. Jesus loves everybody. Yes, he does love everybody. But so Jesus also said, if you love me, you will do what I command. You will follow my commandments. You will obey my commandments. And so people are like, well, Jesus never said anything about homosexuality. Well, because he was a Jew, and we just read Leviticus, right? Leviticus said if you find a guy laying with a guy, if you find a homosexual, you put them to death. So I don't really think there was a whole lot of homosexuality that Jesus had to address.
Right. I mean, they practiced Genesis 1.
Right. Yes.
Man and woman.
So there wasn't a whole lot of conversation with that because in Israel, where Jesus was, there wasn't a whole lot of that he needed to address. Was it happening? I'm sure. It's a Roman province, right? I'm sure the Romans were doing that for a long time.
Absolutely.
So, but he wasn't sent to the Romans.
Right.
He didn't really say much of anything to that. So, anyway, the point is, homosexuality continues throughout the Bible to stay the same. This is not okay. This is a sin. It doesn't progressively change. It doesn't say, oh, this is better. Now it's okay. It wasn't okay back then. It was condemned back then, and it's still condemned now.
Yeah.
Before Jesus and after Jesus, it is still under the same context and the same vision. Like God sees it the same. It's still a sin. It's still a sin. The only difference is now we don't kill you right away. Eventually that will kill you.
It will kill you on its own, but that's why he doesn't like it.
That's why he doesn't
all the things, all the sins, all the things that God doesn't want you to do isn't because he is a party pooper. It's not because he hates you. It's not because he doesn't want you to have fun in life. It's not because he doesn't want you to find love. It is because it will kill you early.
Right, because he's the designer, right? Genesis 1 says he created us male and female. In his image, he created us. So we are image bearers of him, of our designer, and he would know what works. This is the pride of humanity, is that we think we know better than God. Hence why we took a bite of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, that we might know. We might know what God knows.
Yeah.
And so what we continually find in humanity is the need to prove that we know.
Yeah.
And prove that we know better than God, and prove oh no, you know what? We don't have to follow those rules. Those are just things some man made up some time ago.
Right. And
it's no, you can't. And we find humans, raging and saying, science this and science that. You can't find science that proves that this is a good idea. Right. You can't find science that says, yes, some people are born gay. There's no scientific evidence, and there's no scientific evidence that there is more than two genders.
Right.
You cannot find it, and you find people being like, well, this little whatever sploosh of whatever, it's asexual. It's okay, you're comparing yourself to
I think it's 0.1% of children are actually born with both genitalia or both chromosomes. And that's a chromosome abnormality, just like Down syndrome, just like the other, that doesn't mean you can identify. Okay. I can't identify as a Down syndrome person.
No.
That's not first of all, that's very offensive.
Well, why would you want to, is the question.
And then also, it just isn't ever going to be true unless I have a chromosome abnormality. So to say that you're asexual or transgender or whatever, well, show me the chromosomes.
Right. But that's the point. But we're trying to say that we don't have to follow these rules because we know better for ourselves. We know better for ourselves.
Right.
And I'm like, you don't know better than the designer.
Yep.
I don't know better about this Mac than the designer of this Mac.
Yeah.
I just don't, because I didn't make it, and I'm not good with computers. I trust the computer guy way more than I trust myself with this computer. And yet, people with this subject would be like, you don't need to follow the rules of the design. Like, you could use this MacBook as a cutting board. Who tells you can't? You know, it's
logic.
People are like, well, that's a bad example. But that's how ludicrous it really is.
Right. Well, I think a good point is too, like, there's nothing new under the sun.
Right.
Because actually, when you look back, like you're saying, homosexuality is in the Bible for a reason. There's a reason that they wrote that down, because there were people practicing it.
Right.
There's a reason that Jesus had to bring up women. Actually, the feminist movement, not new. No. If you look at Roman history, there were plenty of Roman gods that they worshipped, Elohim that they worshipped, that put women above men, that were goddesses. And nothing is new. But we think, like, because you're saying, like, humans just always think they know better.
Right.
So they think that feminism is new, feminism is the way, when actually, and that's what your point is like, that's because of the fall.
Yeah.
We're always, if you look at culture, we're swinging from one extreme to the other. Currently, we're swinging, I don't think we're fully there yet, but we are pretty far over to women are superior.
Yeah.
I think there's still some way to go for the culture to
which is ironic because, I mean, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of, like, women power is now being dominated by the transgender
absolutely
men.
Yes, because the men want to have the power. That's so the women have all the power right now. So men are becoming women to get the power.
Yeah.
You can look back in American history. Women didn't necessarily have the same amount of rights. Like, they couldn't vote, and there was reasons. There's valid reasons if you look back, but so before it looked like men had all the power. Now it looks like women all have the power, and what the Bible wants, what Jesus wants,
is actual equality.
Is that we work together in our strengths, because women are strong.
Right.
Women can be physically strong, and we should strive to be healthy and strong. Men can be emotionally strong, and they strive and work to be emotionally strong.
But you actually won't ever be as physically strong as a man.
Most men. I mean, I might be stronger than a man.
Like, a very, very petite man type thing. Like, he would have to be.
No, that's true. I'm only 5 feet tall, people.
Like a midget guy.
Or a teen.
I don't know what are supposed to call people like that anymore. It's changed a lot of things. Small people, a small person. Is that what they call them? Dwarfs now?
I think maybe.
It's still technically offensive.
Really?
I don't think there really is all of them are offensive.
I think you just call them a person nowadays.
Okay.
The people that didn't grow very much.
The people that are that big, I don't know what to say. The point is, genetically, you will not be ever be able to be stronger than a man. That is why, like, this is the craziness of our times, is that this whole gender thing is being pushed so much and accepted and celebrated. And same with homosexuality. It's all
transgender.
And transgender thing. There's a guy who is a trans
athlete,
UFC fighter. He broke a woman's skull.
Right.
In a fight.
Because he's like 6 foot. She's
because
just not.
He's a man. It doesn't even, like, if I'm fighting a woman, it doesn't, it's actually shocking how much overpowering I am over.
Without even trying.
Without really even trying. Yeah. Like, it's an accident most of the time where I'm like, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh. How many times has a man put his hand on my shoulder and I'm like, holy cow, that hurt?
Yeah.
And he was like, oh.
And that's not to say that they're like women are like weaker than me. Physically, they're weaker than me.
Genetically. But the point that I'm trying to make is
you can be a strong woman and a healthy woman.
Yeah.
The point is that God created male and female as a gift, a complementing gift
and a pair.
Yes,
like you can't okay. Don't get me wrong. You can be a whole person by yourself. Don't misconstrue what I'm about to say. But it works really well when you put a man and a woman to work on a project together.
Yes.
And they both listen to each other and they both bring their strengths and they help cover the weakness of the other person.
Yeah.
Because that's the way we were supposed to work.
Yeah.
That's just how it was supposed to be. When you and I, not only because we're man and woman, but because we're siblings. But when we work on something together,
siblings, everybody, we are not married.
No, thank you. Okay. But when we work on
Incest
something together,
is also a sin.
Okay. Also, we're not twins. Okay, just so you know, like we're not twins that got married. We're not people that got married.
Adopted.
He's not related to us. Anyway, but when we work together on something, it's awesome.
Christ.
It works really well. Things get done. A lot of times you have vision and I have application.
Yep.
Or I'll have the vision and you have application in different areas.
But we're supposed so male and female, husband and wife, is a submission to each other. Mm-hmm. And that is actually, that's biblical in all relationships. The Bible teaches us submit to each other, to one another. And so the whole idea that one should have more power than the other is just completely unbiblical and is completely not what Jesus was about.
Right.
He was the first person to be teaching women.
It was Jewish culture.
It was completely wrong for him to do that.
Yeah.
He did it anyway. It was wrong for him to be associating with women.
Mm-hmm.
He did that anyway.
Yeah.
So this whole gender, all of this stuff, it's always been a constant thing. And I don't think even this whole transgender thing isn't new either.
No.
It's just that we have this modern application of cutting off body parts and drugs. Giving medication and hormones.
Yeah. If you just look at Rome, Rome was one of the most, what is that word I'm looking for?
Perverted. You see
cultures.
What we did there? We worked with each other.
Brainwaves going whoop whoop. Anyway,
is that a technical term? Whoop whoop.
The brainwaves going whoop whoop.
Oh gosh!
But Rome is one of the most perverted cultures that we have, written down stuff about.
Right.
Sodom and Gomorrah, but Rome, because they embraced all the things that went against the Jewish law. They embraced. So that if you look at Rome, it's actually eerily similar to the United States right now.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. We just don't call things gods.
Yeah.
And we don't have long-lasting roads.
You know what? We don't. They had marble roads. And I says, that sounds beautiful.
Yeah.
Way better than these cracked potholes out here.
Yeah. Well, we are eerily similar.
We are.
But, I have so many tangents right now. I can go on, but I'm reining it in. Because this is a podcast about purity right now.
But the point I'm making in that is that none of this sexual stuff is new. None of this power struggle between genders is new.
Right.
But as Christians, we have a blueprint of how we get to teach and get to function, and we get to teach the next generations of people.
Yeah.
And it actually doesn't have to be as scary and intimidating as the world wants us to make it. And how important is the rule of first mention?
It's really important because, we're losing this. We have a losing strategy. We don't have a strategy, for one, for these conversations because they're not happening and because we're just choosing to be uncomfortable with it. And now the culture is so much against what the true norm should be that people are afraid to be canceled and to be like shamed. And because basically you are shamed, you are condemned, you are socially and I mean a lot of times physically condemned.
Yeah.
Like brutalized for even just saying, yeah, there's only two genders.
Right.
Like what used to just be a normal fact. Like there's only two genders. And so it's just, it's crazy because there's kids, really malleable children who are being indoctrinated into these things and believing it so much. They get so emotional. They get so riled up about these, and people think that Christians are going out and wanting to kill these people. And I'm like, where in the world are you hearing this from?
I actually haven't heard any,
I haven't
even like super alt-right
like
Christians.
Westboro Baptist people. I haven't heard about them in years.
No, even like these people that are so like even against like the Spirit, like the Holy Spirit, like not against the Holy Spirit, but like the manifestations of the Holy Spirit. I haven't heard them say that. I just know that they're like, this is not right.
Yeah,
like that's as
the
far as they
narrative
go.
that they're being fed and that they're being taught, and so like it's so incredibly destructive because now if you go against it at all,
you're
the enemy and you're after my life.
Right.
So we actually need to be very aggressive on these subjects, not like scary aggressive, but like the fact that we really need to be stepping into the arena and educating ourselves about what is the actual consequences of this, because nobody's asking the consequences. And one of my points tonight with the kids is like, okay, why are you feeling this way?
Right.
Like, no, it's not because you're the wrong gender. Like, what is actually happening? What happened in your life that got you to this point? What is the things that are leading you to these conclusions? And let's talk about those.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee you, there's trauma there. There's something there that got you to this point. Because a normal person, it's called gender dysphoria for a person. It's a disease. So the crazy thing is, all of a sudden, we decided to treat a disease
with action,
with like chopping things, like we're back in the medieval ages,
right?
And now we're like, oh, this is a dysphoria, so we're gonna just allow you to continue to feed into the dysphoria, and now we're affirming it.
Yeah,
and it's not just that, but you're doing it yourself. Like you're not going to a doctor and they're doing it automatically. You're giving them permission to do it. So like it's even farther back.
And you don't even need parental permission in most states.
It's crazy. And honestly, maybe this is a little too conspiracy theory for you, which is just actually a term made up by the CIA in the 60s, FYI.
After they killed JFK. Don't cancel me.
Now we're all labeled.
That was a semi-joke because I actually don't know if that's true.
No, it is true.
Oh, okay. That is true.
The CIA did. You can look it up.
My God. They admitted it, I think.
Yes, they had to admit it because it was released to the public.
Oh, my gosh. That was recent, I feel?
Yes.
Anyway, tangent.
What was I saying?
Sorry.
Conspiracy
theory.
Oh, what a great moneymaker.
Right. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So we've now just...
Hey, I mean, it's not... I mean, it's kind of factual because... I mean,
it is factual.
The love of money is the root of all evil. All evil.
No, it's the root of...
Right?
The love of...
That's what I said, the love of money.
Oh, yeah. Is the root of all kinds of evil.
Yeah. So like...
Yeah.
Well, that's true because when you get a surgery, I've listened to 2 or 3 interviews with people who transitioned and then detransitioned.
Right.
And some of them had surgeries and some of them have not. I've also listened to interviews of people who transitioned and have not transitioned back because they've gone too far.
Yeah.
So a lot of this time, when you have the surgeries, they know. So a lot of the reason that a lot of doctors have jumped on this is because they know that there is going to be continual upkeep surgeries, especially for men that become women.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to go into gory details, but it's so intense and
so
it's
gross.
so constant, and the amount of infections that these people are getting, it's super, super sad, and they guarantee you will not live long because they won't want to, honestly. Like, even if they lived a long, like, I don't think they would even want to, and so therefore
because it's really painful.
Yes,
like the things that you have to do, like it's really disgusting.
It's
terrible.
It's disgusting because you can see in their faces and hear in their voices how much they're trying to make it like they're happy.
Yeah,
and like the ones that admit that they're not happy, it's like devastating. Like they're so
they destroyed their whole life.
Excruciatingly miserable.
Yes.
I just remember this interview with, it was a 17-year-old or a 24-year-old woman who transitioned to be a man when she was 17.
Mm-hmm.
She was so devastated. She has been on testosterone for however many years that is, and her hair was starting to fall. She looked like a 35-year-old bald man.
Yeah.
Like not very overweight, but she was a little rotund. Like she had no control over what her body was doing whatsoever.
Yeah.
And like partially those interviews exposed the fact that we need to make sure that we're communicating with our preteens and our teenagers.
Yeah.
So constantly and so well that it's okay that you are uncomfortable in your body.
Yeah.
Because all of them were teens when they transitioned.
Mm-hmm.
And what they said was they were so uncomfortable in their body and so insecure in who they were, which is a normal preteen teenager thing to happen.
Welcome to middle school. Yep.
They didn't have in-person friends because they're younger than us. So what was fairly popular is Reddit and online forums like that, where people would go on and be like, if you feel uncomfortable wearing tight clothes, you could be transgender. If you feel uncomfortable with this part of you, you could be transgender. If you think this, and this. So basically anything.
Yeah. Anything that makes you feel uncomfortable.
Anything about being a preteen or a teenager.
Yeah.
If you don't know, if you're having this feeling in your body when this happens, you could be transgender.
Yeah.
Like it could be literally anything. Like think back when you're a teenager and like just things would happen.
Yeah.
And so you don't know what that is, especially people that didn't get a sex talk.
I was very rarely ever comfortable as a preteen.
Absolutely not.
I think I started feeling comfortable as a teenager, maybe at 16.
I feel like it was 23 for me.
I think I think I've like kind of figured stuff out. Like I felt good about me at like really good about me at 17.
I honestly tuned a lot of it out because it just hurt so much. Like, I really can't remember a whole lot. Like I know there's stuff there, but like I only remember a couple of things. I'm like, it couldn't have just been a couple of things.
Right. And so I'm like, so we need to make sure to talk to, I'm saying preteens, but honestly all ages.
Yeah.
About this.
Where do you find your security?
It's
Actually,
okay that you're uncomfortable. It's okay that you don't know what's going on all the time. It's okay that you don't like yourself sometimes.
Right.
It's okay that you want to change your physique sometimes.
Yeah.
It's okay that you want to experience different fashion taste. It's okay. And that doesn't mean anything.
Right.
That doesn't mean you're emo. It doesn't mean you're gay. It doesn't mean that you should be a different gender. It doesn't mean you're not a Christian. It doesn't mean that you are evil. Like
it's applying meaning to something that actually it's like what the attributes. Yeah. Like applying meaning to attributes to gender that don't exist. Like
or interests.
Yeah. Like really like their interests and hobbies. It's like some people like to work on cars some of them are women. Does that make them more masculine? No. Like
Right.
that doesn't make them more of a man than me.
Right.
That just means they like to work on cars.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know anything about cars. Would I like to know anything about cars? Maybe just because I'm cheap and I'd like to work on my own car. But honestly, there's not a time in my life is like, you know what? I just love to get really greasy and get under the car.
Yeah.
Like,
But like, so
never
I'm
happened
saying
to me.
like,
But that doesn't mean I'm less of a man. That doesn't make, if you had that interest, it makes you more manly than me.
Yeah.
But we've attributed meaning to things that are actually completely meaningless when it comes to gender sexuality.
right.
So
So like, I think what I'm emphasizing is we really need to get comfortable about talking about that, like uncomfortable things about transitioning as a human person. Like you have to verbalize that to your children. We have to verbalize that to this generation. It's okay that you're uncomfortable right now. That doesn't mean that you are in the wrong body. Right. It means that you're going through a transition.
Yeah.
Like hormones are a thing, people. We don't talk about them because it's awkward for people, but hormones are a thing. And like when you're transitioning, you have very little control over them, and you have no idea how to control them.
Right.
You have to learn.
Yeah.
But if you are just being like, okay, this all means that I'm not the right person.
Right.
I have to change everything. You're just making a whole hot slew of a mess.
Yeah. And I think part of our core value and belief at Coram Deo is like we have a generation to save.
Yeah.
And I completely agree with that. Like obviously because I was part of making it, but like all of this information should make you feel really fired up to
empowered.
Yeah. Empowered and energized to save a generation. Listen, I learned today that 70% of youth today are ineligible to
77%
of youth today are ineligible to serve in the U.S. military because they're fat. They're too fat. They're overweight.
That's awe-inspiring.
That's crazy. So we have teen suicide skyrocketing. We have zero answers. Everyone's like flabbergasted. Everyone's like, "What's happening?
It's COVID.
It's because they were locked up." It's like the problem was there way before that. If all of a sudden it's happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, so we have teenagers addicted to pornography who are overweight, who live virtually, basically their entire life.
It's not just their fun on computers; it's their schoolwork. It's like everything.
And all of those things are connected to pornography because it's all virtual.
Yeah,
like people, it's so integrated that it's ridiculous. I've read this article to the guys of how a bunch of the consumption is happening at school. A bunch of the pornography is happening at school on devices that the school gives them. And so like it's happening almost constantly.
Yeah.
And people are like, why are teenagers killing themselves?
Well, because they don't see the sun
alone,
either. Like,
but those indicators alone, and no one's actually telling them the truth. No one's telling them this is terrible for you.
Yeah.
Pornography is not real life. Pornography is lying to you. Listen, dude, you're fat. This is not good for you.
Right.
You're eating like crap. You're not physically healthy. These are just facts that are true. You can't choose your gender. Listen, man, you shouldn't be having sex all over the place because God designed it this way. This is how it should work. We aren't having these conversations. And I mean, heck, man, adults aren't having these conversations.
I know, yeah, that's
for the
why
most
we're
part.
like that book could be good for every age.
And so we kind of need to wrap it up, but I would just really encourage everyone who listens, like, listen, we actually have a generation to save here. We really need to get over our uncomfortable feelings. We need to get over the fact that, you know what, it could cost us our reputation. We could be outcasts, but like, we actually are standing for the truth. Like, we're actually standing for women's rights. We're actually standing for
gender equality.
For equality, we're standing for all that is good, and we can let fear dictate how much we press in, and how much it can dictate how we live our life and what subject we talk about. And I'm just not going to be a Christian that does that. And so I just want to give that challenge to you. Like, don't be a Christian that does that. Don't be a person that lets fear and society dictate what areas the gospel should be preached in.
Yep.
And don't let, like, the Satan is just having a field day on our kids. And like Coram Deo, we're gonna save this. We're with Jesus. We have a generation to save. We're gonna see this. We're gonna see this turnaround.
Yeah.
So be a part of that.
And I just want to point out, like, a lot of times the reason that people have these issues of fear of talking about this is because they have their own story. So honestly, take this as a challenge for yourself to find freedom, to be healed, to be renewed in the fact that you can actually have a healthy outlook on sexuality and on sex and on that beautiful union between you and your spouse. Because it doesn't have to be dirty. There doesn't have to be innuendos. There doesn't have to be, you don't have to take any of the influence that you had as a child or growing up or whatever it is. You don't have to take any of the abuse any further. Like, you don't have to take that with you. Yeah. And you don't have to teach from that either. Because there is also that movement of making sex and sexuality so okay in the Christian world that it looks a whole lot like what's going on outside. So take the opportunity, dive into the Bible, dive into different curriculum. Moral Revolution has a lot to give, and really heal your story of sexuality, as well as saving the generations.
Yeah. So Jesus, we just pray that you give everybody courage who listens to this and who doesn't listen to this. I just pray that we take a stand and we actually step in and start fighting for these kids and for our society, for our culture, that we would actually live out the gospel and it start to infect instead of the other way around.
Yeah.
And I just pray that we decide that we are going to go into the uncomfortable places and start to see Jesus move in those places, in our lives, and in our kids' lives, and in our schools. And we be known for the courage that we carry, and the wisdom and the love that we carry as well from Jesus. All right. Amen. Thanks for coming, guys. See you next week.
Like, subscribe, comment.
Oh, and
Hashtag.
if you like to donate, we will there's going to be a donate button right there. You don't have to. There's no obligation. But if you're like, hey, I like what you guys are doing, I want to support your ministry, go for it. Because you know what? All this stuff costs money regardless. And you know what? Philip does this for completely free.
Oh, yeah.
He's the main man, Philip. One day I want to pay him. So send in the money if you want to pay Philip.
Maplewood Meats, we will receive steak as payment. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, we will receive.
Absolutely.
All right.
Peace.
Bye.
Wait. I got one quick story before you. Okay. I gotta go, but yeah. I told you. Quick story. Okay. I told you, but here's the longer version. It's only a couple minutes. Anyway, okay. So I'm serving these two ladies, okay?
Oh my gosh.
They're older. And she brings up sports, which is normal. So here's how it starts. Okay. Like, do you play any sports or anything? And before I could answer, she's like, do you play like basketball or something? I'm like, no. Do you play like soccer? And I'm like, no. So she says like a couple other things, like I think she says like golf and something else. And then she's like, do you play tennis? And then at this time, I'm done packaging a ground chuck. And then I turn around and Caleb, he's laughing his butt off. Like he's like trying not to laugh, but he's laughing so hard. And so I turn around, I'm like, I don't actually play a lot of sports. He's like, oh. Well, you are a tall glass of water, though. And I'm like, thank you. So, here's your bait. Have a nice day.
Did she say, can I kiss you on the cheek?
No. But actually, well, okay. There is one lady.
That's what I'm talking about. All this stuff is historically been done before.
Before.
Look at Rome. Look at all their Yahwehs, not Yahwehs.
What?
What's the
all
word?
All the lollers? Look at all the lollers over there.
No, look at all their gods that they worship.
Allahs. Aluhim. Aluminum. I gotta go. Yeah.
You have to take me home.
Take me home.
Not to your home.
Country road to a place
Where
I belong. West Virginia. Country mama. I don't know the lyrics. Take me home. Country road.
You don't even like country. Why do you know that?
I listen to the Jamaican version. More, so it's basically the same thing.
Jamaican version of a country
Jamaican version of country song. It's the same thing, but Jamaica. All right. Okay.
Hashtag Maplewood Meats. I think if they do, we should eat a beef steak every podcast.
Absolutely.
You said there was green ones?
Yeah, they're green ones. Mm-hmm.
Is that just the two colors?
No, there's green, there's gray, and I mean there's black.
Wow, you chose the lightest one.
Yeah.
He chose caramel.
Well, everybody said that this would like match me like the best. So.
It looks great.
He
chose the maple color.
It was a black joke.
Racism.
Because you didn't pick the black one.
Oh yeah. I missed that completely.
That's okay.
Wow.
Sometimes I'm out there.
Where did that happen?
Well, how much are they?
So what are these called? Sweatshirts? Mm-hmm. These are $19.
Oh, really? That's so cheap.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of gray is it?
It's like
a speckled light gray, or like the gray that we had.
Anyway, this is like a long conversation about sweaters. Anyway. Just so we're all aware.
Hold up. Whoop. Not to look. Whoop. Boop. Is it dancing?
Oh, it's dancing. Oh.
Alrighty. Ready. Wait. Is it good? It's good. It's solid. Yeah. Yeah, it's solid. Okay. Cool.
Either way, it's kind of awkward.
A little bit. Yeah. Awkward.
Okay. Hey, we remember this time.
Remember. Woo.
Oh, yeah.
Dance like an old man.
Boom.
That's a sick fade.
Yeah, I faded it because it's awkwardly long, actually.
A little bit.
After a while.